handkerchiefs, scarves, and cravats.
What? He does not blow his nose by using his fingers?
Demands a character in Georges Danton's Death, a play set during the French Revolution.
He has an handkerchief? He's an aristocrat. Hang him on a lamppost.
Now, the use of a handkerchief has not always been a matter of life or death, but it has been a sign of gentility since the 16th century, when Erasmus, the Dutch Renaissance humanist Catholic priest, wrote that to wipe your nose on your sleeve is boorish. And it's interesting here to note that Napoleon was the first to put buttons on his soldiers' sleeves in order to stop them wiping said noses on said sleeves. And so, it has changed surprisingly little over 4 centuries. The best handkerchiefs are still made of linen, which maintains its crisp, starched appearance, and the most expensive still have hand-rolled edges, because no machine can yet copy this finish successfully. Lawn handkerchiefs were also made of a linen material, from lawn in France, which gives them their name. Now, lawn is a high-quality polished cotton, second only to linen itself. Cotton handkerchiefs only became available from the middle of the 17th century, and they boomed in popularity with the craze for snuff. Printed handkerchiefs were acceptable to disguise the snuff stains, but then, as now and as with shirts, white remains the proper color for gentlemen. Only the paisley pattern has remained acceptable among colored pocket handkerchiefs. This pattern is derived from cashmere shawls, which first reached Western Europe around 1800 and were copied by the weavers in Paisley, Scotland. The curled figures of the paisley pattern are a symbol of unfolding life, known in India as butta, meaning flower, but known in Paisley as pines. Other colored spotted and silk handkerchiefs are now reserved for the breast pocket. The paisley can also be worn in the breast pocket, but only in the puff fold, popularized by that dancing dervish Fred Astaire. The straight TV fold of the 1950s has been replaced by the looser triangle and multi-pointed folds. Their formality can be increased by using plain, crisp linen handkerchiefs instead of colored silk. And silk brings us nicely to scarves and cravats. Now, legend traces the origin of the cravat back to 1660, when a regiment of mercenaries from Croatia, who had been fighting with the armies of Sweden in the 30 Years' War, visited Paris in a victory celebration. Louis XIV admired the way that they wore bands of material tied around their necks, and soon this crotte neckwear had been adopted by the French. Yet centuries before, Roman soldiers serving in Germania and northern Gaul wore a woolen focale wound around the neck, with the long ends hanging loose upon the chest to protect them against the unaccustomed cold. Here, it seems, lies the origin of the woolen scarf, worn for warmth, as opposed to the silk, muslin, or lace cravat, worn for decoration. By the 19th century, the cravat dominated men's fashion. Rules governed its shape, size, color, fabric, and the last twists of the score of possible knots. Only the ascot, an innovation late in the century, was tied in a simple over-end fashion and was worn for morning walks and sports. As stiff, tall collars gave way to the turn-down, the cravat gave way to the tie, and the complexity of knots was forgotten. Today, most cravats are tied like ascots and worn beneath open-neck shirts, a strange shift, really, into informality for what was once the most formal of garments. Even with the morning dress, most formal cravats are now tied in the simple end-over manner. Only the scarf, which is basically an outdoor garment, has retained its original function throughout. It still keeps out the cold from the informality of college colors, through the practicality of wool and cashmere mufflers, to the formality of white silk, which should never be worn once the overcoat has been removed. And perhaps its survival is understandable. After all, it has had 2,000 years in which to be tied and tested. And this brings us nicely to the end, the rule of the cravat. In 1828, H. Leblanc published his definitive work, The Art of Tying the Cravat, which listed 22 different types of knot. It is still believed that the order is really Balzac, who believed that cravats were the only surviving true social indicator. Beau Brummel would leave a dressing room littered with crumpled cravats. "Those, sir," his valet explained to a visitor, "are our failures." And the way in which one tied and pinned a cravat was a clear indication of a man's self-esteem. Monsieur Leblanc agreed. "The grossest insult that can be offered to a man comme il faut," he wrote, "is to seize him by the cravat. In this place, blood only can wash out the stain on either party.